And how thin during crunch time, feeling like a closing window of opportunity, could an individual be drawn? Time to catch up with our subplot human thread, dear readers, along for the Daniel's 70th of weeks of years sojourn. In so doing, catapulting us from an expiring hour of his into an entirely new season. In both timeframe leap instances for Israeli Mossad agent Joel Weber, in a way that was scarcely traditional, duty once again called. The children, too damn young to be on a 747 by themselves. For that matter, from this region of the world during this specific hour in time, the pilots were themselves too young. Unaccompanied by specific chaperone, one per individual or small group, and smart enough to understand the initiative behind this, their state-sponsored abducting only where first endorsed by the office and personnel of Federal Youth and Humanitarian Orphan International Deportation Services. The leaked photos scarcely requiring the caption or commentary to clue the spectators of streams in as to what transpired here. However, through Nasser Hussein's commandeered media outlets as usual to invert what was being reported was all one had to do to find a voice externally that agreed with what was inwardly understood by now. 'Twould seem that those local appeals finding deaf ears were on distant wings of articulation heard after all. It was difficult by appearances alone to detect this group of 300 Iranian children on for this flight, just who comprised the Spritlings group and who understood beyond emotional superficial level quantifiable by no ordered a foreknowledge thing otherwise the specific dire ramifications inherent in missions failure, and who comprised those conditionally at emotional peaks shorn resilience from which, whatever style of counseling and unto whatever good family shall these go, these would remain most unlikely to recover. Quite the feat for the mental health counselors in qualified groups, given stimulus and reward for their part to play in nurturing and alleviating of volatudinal and momentous unrest and maelstrom while attempting to quell away from these the demonic notion that's at home realization could only be found in a goal to essentially use these humans as regime protecting shields. And was it a shield itself? President Alexander Khrushchev suddenly vested in Iranian partner affairs while retaining a parental rights claim so as to attempt to, as he'd said, act as liaison so as to circumvent the nefarious declaration of war at the expense of the free will of these little ones who are entitled to lives they'd only ever before known. So to the outcries in the streets of Tehran, he'd had over a year to hear the petitions correctly but went tone deaf instead. As commented one media reporter from nearby Tehran. Exercising the gull of temerity, one Iranian official who would from his quarters weather the storm, whatever its manifest result and for however long unto whatever outcome, these less braggadocious about their flaunted expedient gains in nuclear energy these days that was a major distressor amid collective nations. With greatest frequency on the television sets before this day operational, reminding the world in tones of hysteria just what nation comprised their Little Satan designation, so-called, and who comprised the Big Satan, working in cahoots, one with the other. These proven caregivers demonstrating the multifaceted business that was war in wartime responsibility impassionately cared about the welfare of children in a way that their caregivers couldn't, and overnight, as it were, in their abducting was, if not a prophecy, so demanded the opponents of the idiot for his posture of strength branded by foreign countries as racist, then such was a prophecy unto its fulfillment here. A civilization-ending motion activated by NATO nations and the appointed commission busy on war crimes charges, wherein really was found the drainage leak or bloodied nose in the pipeline and body rendering accountable one of Earth's last remaining monsters. From here there could be no turning back or the diplomacy goal realized. From here war was discovered to know no bounds. In fact, considering the many proxy groups designated as terrorists nurturing as sucklings off of the breast of the Iranian regime, she was the last and only yet still living fire-breathing dragon, splaying claws and arresting tentacles, the feeling was, with whom the reasonable world and good society had to contend. From their limousine set to idle beneath the plane's wing while watching the children deboard large yellow school buses to board the 747s, Giselle Varvalovsky watched on, odd her manner of outside dress for her today with gray stonewashed jeans, black leather jacket dominantly lined with the dazzling white fluffs of rabbit fur resembling that of the Eskimo hound with the plumes of fox fur as finer lapel and collars lining innermost lining coloring her elegant and beautiful still as she watched the children, boys but mostly girls, a 1-to-5 ratio, board the vehicles, excited only where anxious and wearing the expression of a person desperately set against a closing window of time. To Joel's estimation, she watched on with pique interest as though from out of the many children seeking one of them in particular, see her even in distressed state as attractive as was she in her opera attire, though Joel, only without the red fingers to elbow satin wrap gloves, bodice-hugging old-style dress with only somewhat of the plumey skirt and what he referred to as the fashionista elegant lady exotica, black leather and diamond-studded and sequined mask covering upper portion of her face, like a character from a Leo Tolstoy novel. Joel thought of War and Peace. My goodness, what is the word? Giselle stirred, tremulous activity concentrated in her mouth. Joel lowered his eyes to see the rare pinching repetitions as she awkwardly twitch, recover and then repeat this nonverbal mode of speaking, sounding on the trail of a last word as if she'd just bitten into her lip, ambivalence. Was really how she'd articulated the word with frightened fleeting glances behind those brown-tinted sunglasses traded from Joel's face to the children who were 50 to 100 feet away from where the white limousine idled, several of them while rushing onto the plane's steprise trip over their motoring feet and small bodies. I grew up here, began she, or around these parts as I finally shared with you. Starting to bite her fingernails atop one hand with little peck-like motions that she, only upon Joel's lowering his eyes in an absurdly concentrating glance, became cognizant of, looking from her mouth to her hand and the distracting glint of diamond from the other hand shimmering in the lend of prematurely expiring twilight. Animatedly she sent this streak of diamond light refracting rainbow sparks a flittering from the passenger side rear seat of the limousine as though constructing her silhouetting halo. I was reared by two beautiful persons, only later to learn of my father's cartelling and ill affiliation. I too boarded the planes as a child around their ages, yet knowing full well that I'd be returning to Tehran.